All right, guys, we're just getting everything going here. All right, looks like live on Facebook, live on Instagram. Good, 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 good. So we will kind of give it a minute or two. Mr. J. Sanders, Mile High Note Game Calls. What's up, buddy? Jeremy, C. Evans 06, Hunting for Christ. Good evening, Jay Colley. I am doing well. How are you, bud? Justin Glowoski. Good evening. Paradigm Shift, Hide Outdoor. Okay, we're getting a few people jumping in. And just like that, YouTube has decided to join us. Bugle me this. How you doing? Kendall Manners from Facebook. Eladio Manriquez, welcome, welcome. Live on YouTube and glad to be here. Keaton Chancellor, good evening. Benito, good evening. Heading to Park City. Yeah, I figured you guys would already be over there. You got callers meeting bright and early tomorrow morning and then have to jump up on stage. So, Benito, I'm finally able to make it again. Brian Draper checking in from Florida. Is it September yet? God, I wish it was. So, Big Skinny, excited for tonight. Hey, it was great chit-chatting with you earlier today. So, Steve Preziosi, Scott Schmid, Mike Boyd, Nicholas Curry, Wags94, Caleb Newton. All right, we have a bunch of people in here, so we will give it until 7:32 and we'll get started. Apparently last week I upset some people because I had the title of the video and they were graciously to let me know that I did not even talk about that subject until 30 minutes in. So tonight's title for the video is Pulling the Herd Bull Away from His Cows in Early Season. So we're going to jump right into that one first, and then we'll cover all the other questions. So Larry Bennett from John Day is here. Over the Hill Hunter, Bill Berry, good evening. Caleb Newton, I am doing well, bud. How are you? So, all right, guys. I was also told last week that I took 6 minutes until I really got into it, so we're 2 minutes in. Here we go. Hey everybody, my name is Michael Batiste with the Elk Calling Academy, and this is Wapiti Wednesday Q&A. If this is your first time tuning in tonight, welcome. We're glad you're here. The way Wapiti Wednesday typically works is we typically start with a topic, a subject. So tonight the first question or topic is how to pull a herd bull away from his cows during early season. Now, it doesn't matter if you're joining us from Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube. The cool thing about Wapiti Wednesday Q&A is you can type your questions, comments, or concerns in as we're rolling along, and we will do our best to get to those while we're on the live feed. So, also, if this is your first time or you've been here a few times and you're enjoying the content, make sure that you like, follow, or subscribe, depending on whichever platform you're joining us from. So, all right, here we go. Christian Epps, I have a rut tag in Arizona and I have no clue how to call. I'm stressing. Where should I start? Let's table that one. We will get into that. Let me take care of this other one first. So, got to appease the crowds, right? So, okay, so Jay Colley asks, what is the best way to get a herd bull away from his cows in early season? So it really kind of goes with everything else that we do throughout the year and that we've talked about throughout the season. So those bulls are rounding up the the cows for breeding. So the best way to really work a herd bull is, remember we've talked about the breeding sequence before. It attracts breeding age bulls. So why not do that breeding sequence? Basically what's going to happen, that herd bull is going to recognize the sounds that you're doing. He's going to recognize the story that you're telling, the picture that you're painting over there. And basically he's going to go, that bull over there has a hot cow. He's going to loop through his cows real quick and all of a sudden find, well, I don't have a hot cow, but he does. So it's almost like that bull sitting there going, wait a minute, that dude over there has ice cream. I don't have any ice cream. I want some ice cream. So that's the mentality that he kind of has. I don't have a hot cow. He has a hot cow. I want to breed that hot cow. So he's going to venture away from his cows and come over to you. Now, obviously, your setup is key. If you're trying to do this from a quarter mile away or a half mile away, it's not going to work. But if you're in that zone, if you're in, 150 yards, 125 yards from that bull, he will feel comfortable leaving his cows for a little bit, especially if he thinks that he has an opportunity to come over and breed that hot cow. And with you doing your bull vocalizations, it's kind of matching him or staying just below. He also has that confidence that, you know what, I can go over and take that hot cow away from that bull and not only breed her, but bring her back and make her part of my crew. So Jay, there you go. How do you pull a herd bull away from the cows early in the season? You still do the breeding sequence. You guys have heard me say it, that I do that breeding sequence whether it's day one of the season or the last day of the season. It does not change. So the only thing that changes is kind of what I do in each encounter. And you guys that are part of the Patreon page, you guys got a video last week that kind of showed all that with some tutorials and some interactions. So, all right, there we go. We covered the title topic right off the get-go. So, Christian Epps, read it before. I have a rut tag in Arizona and I have no clue how to call. I'm stressing. Where should I start? So really, Christian, there's a lot of avenues you can go. What I would recommend is go to the Elk Calling Academy YouTube page, and on there look for the playlist that is called The Beginner's Guide to Elk Calling. That will get you going with selecting the right diaphragm reed, get you going with some drills. Now, it is kind of a short time between now and the season. You may not master a diaphragm reed, so you definitely may want to look into an open reed cow call and an external reed bugle also. So that way you have something that you can produce elk sounds with and call with while you're learning that diaphragm reed. So always have that backup plan, always have that contingency plan. Now, even if you become really effective on a diaphragm reed, an open reed cow call is still a great tool to carry. I use them, and in fact this year I'm going to use them a lot more than I have in the years past, just because I kind of went away from it a little bit. But then going back and watching some videos of bulls responding to those open reed cow calls, I'm really shaking my head and wondering why I went away from it in the first place. It just, the sound, the pitch, everything, they just really, really like it. So Christian, there you go. Beginner's Guide to Elk Calling on YouTube from the Elk Calling Academy will get you kind of going in the right direction. Definitely tune into Wapiti Wednesday Q&As. If you want more tutorials, you can actually go to elkcallingacademy.com. There is a monthly subscription on that of $15 a month, but there's all kinds of tutorial videos in there that will teach you all of the vocalizations, how to do them, what they mean, and also give you some hunting strategies. All right, Michael Hamilton, great topic. Sean King, good evening, sir. Great topic, as I only hunt the pre-rut, early rut. There you go. Jay Colley, we got you taken care of. So Nicholas Curry, can you do that sequence? Yes, I can, if you're willing to become a Patreon member. So remember, guys, there is stuff that I do have paid members in lessons and on that. And let me just bring this up, because I had this question approached to me in an email the other day. Is we were talking about different scenarios and sequences and this and that, and the individual was asking me, and I kind of gave some vague information, and they immediately rifled back. Why does it have to be a secret? Why can't you just tell me how to go kill an elk? Perfect. I got to talking to the guy. He's an electrician. I asked him to come over to my house and put a new ceiling fan up in my master bedroom. He told me he could give me a quote, and I said, well, no, I just want you to come do it. And he says, well, I went to school and I studied and I trained. Okay, guys, that's what my 30 years in the mountains has been. That 30 years in the mountain has been my time, my training, my learning. So that's why I have no problem, answering some questions, but there definitely is, quite a bit of the information that I do, share. I've earned that knowledge, just like somebody with a trade or a skill has earned that skill. So Michael Meyer, good evening. So Jeremy from Instagram, can you glunk with a reed? I don't carry a bugle tube or tap it on my hand. Yes, you can, and basically it's, you just want to say whip, whip, whip. Whip, 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 whip. So you're barely making contact on the reed, and you are kind of adding your voice into it to get that bass. Now, obviously, with a tube, and Jeremy, if you don't want to carry a tube because it is too big or this or that, go check out the Game Changer. Go to bendable.com, Bendable Products. It's bendable.com. Check out the Game Changer. It's 4 inches long. You can bugle with it. It will add a little bit of depth. And if you want something that you can easily carry in your pocket, but then also bugle with, that Game Changer is a great addition to add. So, Sean King, paying $15 a month is a bargain for the knowledge we get on Patreon page. I appreciate that. In fact, hey, guys, tomorrow night is the next Patreon live Q&A. I'll put a post in on the page tomorrow morning, so think about your questions and topics that you want to cover now, and throw that in. Thank you, I understand. Yeah, Nicholas, I just get asked a lot. So, bugle me this, the tutorials on e-scouting alone is worth the price of Patreon, especially that favorite e-scouting tool. That is a gold mine. I love that thing. Michael, you still doing private lessons or everything on Patreon? Yes, I am still doing private lessons. In fact, I just did one tonight right before this, and I have another one tomorrow. Slots are kind of starting to fill up. We're kind of getting into that year. So yes, still do the one-on-ones. You do not have to live here. If you are out of the area, we do the one-on-one using Zoom video conference, so we can kind of just get face-to-face like this. So Nimrod, how far will they change location from summer range to winter range? We have located them good this summer, but how can they move to rut? Well, so you want to know how far they'll go from their summer range to their breeding area, not necessarily their winter range. It all depends. I mean, some bulls have, seen 5, 6, 7 miles, some half a mile. It just really depends on topography and this and that. And that's where hunting the same area year after year after year again it's an advantage, because you learn all that information. You learn those breeding zones. You will learn those rutting zones. But also, too, right now when you're summer scouting, in fact, I think, let me look. I think there was a question. That kind of ties in with that a little bit. So, yeah. So, okay. So, Nimrod, Western Contours guy kind of asked the same thing. Elk movement from summer grounds or scouting to rutting areas. Finding elk at a point A in June, July doesn't mean they'll be there come the autumn equinox general rules, so out of state. So, okay, so I'm going to kind of hit both of these at the same time. So if you're out scouting and you're finding animals right now, you're finding the bulls, you know where the bulls are hanging out up high, start working the mountain at different elevations, looking for those rutting signs and those old rubs, those wallows, areas that you can tell there's been rut activity there before. Now, that's not to say that bull that is hanging out higher up on the mountain above that's going to be that bull that comes into that rutting area, but that's going to tell you where they are going to be when they start rutting. They're going to go, basically what's going to happen is they're up in the higher elevation. They're going to break apart from their bachelor groups, establish their pecking order, and then they're going to work down low on the mountain to where the cows and calves are. They're going to gather the cows and calves, and then they're going to come back up into that breeding area. And each bull will take his cows back to the breeding area. They have spots that they like to feel comfortable. And that's where these satellite bulls that are hanging around these herd bulls, that, once that herd bull is harvested or, dies from old age or whatever, some of those satellite bulls sometimes can come in and then take over that breeding area. So it's almost like passing the torch and going on in generation. So really the best thing to do is, once you find elk at higher elevation, I typically stay out of that higher elevation at that point, and I will start working lower elevations on the mountain, looking for these breeding pockets, looking for this sign that tells me, that's where the rut is going to hang out. So let's see. So is pulling a bull away like when I ask you to go out for a beer? Not quite. And technically, you haven't asked me to go out for a beer in quite a long time. But maybe we should do that. I know last time we were on the phone, we talked about doing that to help out Winky. So we definitely need to do that. So after Jamboree, let's plan that. So. Jeremy, thanks, Coach. I already have the GC and love it. Yeah. So, Jeremy, with that GC, you can bugle on it, you can cow call on it, you can do your glunks through that. It'll just help add a little bit of depth. So, thank you. There is rutting ground not far, so I wondered if it would be the same bulls as we are finding right now. It could be, but it could also be a bull that you don't even know is in the area that comes into that rutting area. That's what's so cool sometimes, because you can have trail cameras and you are getting pictures and everything of certain bulls, but then all of a sudden come the rut, you have bulls that you've never even seen on camera, and the ones that you had on camera sometimes disappear. So Corey Chrisman, this is off topic. Do you have any advice on what the judges are looking for while calling it the World Elk Calling Competition? It varies. The judges want to hear different things. Some want to hear nice clean notes and transitions and control of the reed. Others want to hear variety of, different sounds. The best piece of advice that I could give is give a good representation of multiple different sounds. But the thing that you want to do is you always want to start off your cow vocalizations with your best set of sounds, and you always want to start off your bull vocalizations with your best bugle, because that is what's going to grab their attention. And if you hit them with something really clean, really nice, and shows off your ability, those judges are going to basically just be, okay, wow, I want to hear more. So okay. Scouting this time of year, you see a herd with cows, calves, and good bulls. Are those bulls satellites? Yeah, I have your question up, Jeremy. I just haven't gotten to that one yet. So, are those bulls satellites and the big herd bulls are still hiding, or could big bulls be with the cows and calves this time of year? Typically, the bulls that you see with the cows and calves this time of year are younger bulls that, yes, will be the satellite bulls. Your older, larger class bulls are away from the cows and calves typically. They are solitude. They're higher up on the mountain, up above the flies, up above the tree line. They are solitude. So these younger bulls that you're seeing that are mixed in with the cows and calves, like I said, these are younger bulls that, because you got to understand, when a bull calf is born, he is going to stay and live with the cows and calves until he reaches a certain age, until he reaches that breeding class age, which, could 3.5. Then he ventures and goes up with the bulls into their bachelor groups and the solitude life. And so then he doesn't really come back down with the cows and calves until it's time to start rounding up cows. So big herd bull, which is the best cow call for beginners? That's kind of a tricky one. If you're talking about a diaphragm reed, it's going to vary from person to person, because you need to find the diaphragm reed that fits the roof of your mouth the best. And typically with new callers, there's 3 that I recommend. The Black Amp from Phelps Game Calls, the Mellow Yellow from Rocky Mountain Hunting Calls, and the Rip It Red from Native by Carlton. This gives you a narrow, medium, and wide frame so that you can find which one really fits in the roof of your mouth the best, gets the best seat, seals the air the best, and you can basically control that reed because it fits really, really well. If you're looking for open reed cow calls, I really like the Green Weenie and the Mini Mouth from Native by Carlton. The Mini Mouth is basically a replica of the Fighting Cow call. Very easy call to use, has some real good nasal qualities to it, and you can get really loud on it to really get after those bulls. So let's see. Great classes. I did them from Colorado over video, and it was a game changer. Yeah, Sean McGarry talking about the Zoom video conference. Can't hear you as good as previous episodes. Hope it isn't my phone. Yeah, somebody said that last week too, and I checked everything. Everything is I don't know. It's everything is all there. So Danny Coyman just got here. Mike, are you not coming for calling tomorrow? Danny, no. Some things have come up. I need to take care of some pretty important business, and so no, I am not going to be making it to Utah for the World Championships tomorrow. So best of luck. Go up there, represent. Just relax and have fun. Do your thing, Danny. You'll be fine. So how many satellites does it take to get good reception? I would say 4 or 5, but it depends on how those satellites are kind of positioned to really bounce off each other to get the reception. Tad, you're awesome, dude. I love you. So, all right. Back to the questions. Okay, this one. When quartering elk, is it less of a chance at meat spoilage to take the time to bone out all the quarters? I have had 2 butchers tell me this and was wondering what's everyone's experience is with boning out quarters or leaving bone in. Great question. So I have always left bone in, but the key with bone in, especially on the hind quarters, is there is kind of a kneecap, and then you'll see kind of a line of the meat that kind of runs. What you need to do is come right underneath that that kneecap, run your knife straight in, hit that femur bone, and then come down, and you'll have this great big hunk of meat that will fall forward. You need to have that, and you need to open that up because there's a lot of heat that is trapped right between that big hunk of meat and the bone. If you don't open that up and let that heat escape, it's going to stay in there, and that is basically where you get bone sour from. Now, here's the deal with bone in versus bone out. Yes, bone out is going to allow all that heat to escape, and it's personal preference whether you want to do it. But here's the thing to consider too. When you hang that meat, whether it's bone in or bone out, it gets a hard skim on it. The butcher is going to trim off that hard skim. So if you bone out, you have a lot more surface area that is going to hard skim that they are just going to trim off and throw away. That means you're losing a lot more meat that way, okay? So, but bone in, bone out, it's personal preference. Yes, you have additional weight when you're packing with bone in, but you can handle quarters a lot easier and you can hang them a lot easier. As I said, I've always left bone in. I've never had a problem with it. So, but the main thing is opening up on the hind quarter that big hunk of meat. And if it's kind of a cooler morning, you'll see it because as soon as you open that up, you're going to see this great big plume of steam rise out of there. So, okay. Okay, we talked about that one. Okay, so this one's kind of a long post, but it's basically, advice for hunting the Frank Church wilderness area. Basically that, have heard that, the elk aren't quite as vocal because of the wolves and this and that. To an extent, yes. The elk are not as vocal out in the open, but you get into thick timbered areas, they are still vocal, but they're just using lower audible sounds. So advice I can give to anybody that's going into the Frank Church or going into wolf country, lower the volume on your calls and be aware of where you're calling from. Don't be standing out in the wide open ringing these ear-piercing bugles down the canyon because all you're going to do is attract all the wolves in the area. Get in the timber, turn your volume down, and call more frequently as you're moving. And also don't forget about the lower audible sounds, your glunks, your grunts, your huffs, raking, those type of things that aren't going to carry as far. So, Big Skinny, have you ever hunted northeastern Washington? Not northeastern Washington, but did hunt quite a bit of the blues there in eastern Oregon. So, all right. Let me jump over to comments and see what we got rolling in. Was in Idaho last week and seen some elk that were dark in color and some that were real light. Are the dark ones staying in dark timber and the light one or not? No, you'll kind of get some variations of, kind of that reddish tint versus the real tan tint. It just kind of, changes. You can also see age class. And one thing with the bulls too, you'll see that their mane and legs will go from a dark brown to almost a black as they get older. So their colors will kind of change with age a little bit. So Mike Ginther, good evening, Michael, and the rest of ECA tuning in from Wyoming. Garrett Weaver, I've heard that large herd bulls will start a little later and let the smaller satellites gather the cows to let them do most of the work than when it's time to kick them out. Is this accurate? Yeah, I've seen it where some of the larger herd bulls will do exactly that. They'll kind of hang back and let some of those younger bulls that are full of energy and excited and this and that, because these larger herd bulls know how much energy they are going to spend with breeding and defending their herd. So they kind of learned a little while ago that maybe it's better to work smarter and not harder, and that's let these smaller herd bulls or these smaller bulls go out and gather all these cows, do this work, and then they come down and all they have to do is kick his butt once, and now all of a sudden they have 7, 8, 10, 12 cows just like that, and they didn't really expend that much energy to gather up all those cows. So yes, it can happen like that. So Big Skinny, other than reading online and boots on the ground, any advice for thermals? Wind checker. Always have a wind checker in your pocket. I will go through 3 or 4 in a season. It's a very valuable piece to have on you at all time, and have it in a pocket or a place that you can grab it easily and quickly, because you're constantly going to be checking the thermals. You're always going to be adjusting the path. You're always going to be checking those. It's just a constant thing. So, but yeah, by reading online and everything, I mean, you can really understand the thermals, but until you get out there, that's when you really gather all the information, because you understand and can feel firsthand what it's doing. Like if you're on the south side, the south facing slope of the mountain, mid-morning temps are up a little bit, thermals are going up, and as soon as you roll around that mountain onto the north side, onto the cool side of the mountain, man, it's 10 to 15 degrees over there, and all of a sudden thermals are blowing down. Or you could have it where it's a bright sunny day, thermals are blowing up, and all of a sudden the cloud cover comes over, blocks the sun, and temps drop, and thermals turn and go again. So that's why it's critical to have that wind checker and constantly be checking the thermals, constantly be checking that wind. I can't stress that enough. The wind is your friend. Use it. So, okay, let's jump over to another question I think we took care of. Yep, we got all of them from there. Okay. Bryce, how do I know it's the right bull for me? Pretty dang easy. If that bull is coming in and your heart rate elevates and your breathing gets quicker, your pulse starts to race, any of that happens, that's the right bull for you. Your body will let you know, because your adrenaline is rising, you're getting excited. That bull is right for you. I don't care how big he is. I don't care what he is. If those things happen, your pulse starts to quicken, your heart rate kicks up, your breathing gets quicker, that's the right bull for you. So, Big Skinny, you bet, bud. So, got any tips on July scouting where there's food and water everywhere? The snow is still melting up high and the grass will still be very green in 60 days. Yeah, this is one thing that I've talked about before in a wet year versus a dry year. In a wet year, that food is spread out a lot more. So the elk are spread out a lot more. What you're going to find is you're actually going to find smaller pockets of elk kind of spread out all over, because there is that food spread out all over. Best thing to do for scouting, the thing to remember, scouting in July is, spend time behind glass if you can. Watch where everything is moving, watch where everything is working. But also, too, Once you've done that and you kind of figure out where the groups are hanging out, now go into those areas and look for those rutting signs close by those areas. Where are those groups going to go to? And then just work all those different areas. In fact, on wet years like this, I will cover a lot more ground. In fact, that's what we're doing this weekend. Bryce and I are heading up to hang some trail cameras, and we're just gonna hike and check out other areas, because you can find some remote pockets um, that maybe you haven't gone into in years past because it's been dry years, that may be little hidden honey holes now because it actually is a wetter year. And maybe there's a wallow in there that years past, when it's been dry, it's dried up, but now that it's a little wetter, there's still going to be a wallow in there. And so, a bull's going to be hanging out in that little pocket, or go into that area for breeding because that small little creek that normally dries up still has water in it. So you can find little hidden pockets that a lot of people may not know about and may just walk right by, because they're going to hit those same normal pockets that everybody knows about. Typically wet time of years, this is when I find a lot of those little hidden gems that not a lot of people know about, or people will just blow right by because they're like, oh, we've never seen elk in here for the past 4 years. But okay, maybe it's been 4 straight years of fairly dry. Now it's wet. So this is one of those things that you can find those hidden pockets and always find other little contingency plans to help you, dive in and get away from people. So Mark just jumped in and he just reminded me. So let me see if I can pull this up. I don't know if I can. Mark, go ahead and type in the code that you sent me earlier today. I can't get into my Instagram messages right now. So go ahead and just type that code into the chat that you sent me earlier, and we'll make that announcement here tonight for everybody on the Hot on the Trail Sense. So, okay. What are a couple of good options besides Thermacell for mosquitoes? Is good old-fashioned DEET a bad choice? So, I'm not too worried about using DEET or using, something for mosquito repellent early on. If you're hunting in an area that has quite a bit of water, is really wet, there are a lot of mosquitoes, really, we're using the wind and keeping the wind in our favor anyways, because remember, you're never going to be 100% scent free. So if you need to use something to kind of hold those mosquitoes in check, you're going to really need to be even more aware of the wind and the thermals, and your setups are going to be even more important. But I would rather do that than constantly be waving mosquitoes or suffering from mosquitoes draining my blood. So, pre-rut elk behavior and hunting tactics. Drew Archery first, or August 1st archery tag. So, Oleg, basically pre-rut, especially August 1st, those bulls are still going to be kind of in their bachelor group and solo mentalities. So this is where you're scouting right now from distances with glass to establish their patterns. Where are they bedding down? Where are they feeding? Where are they traveling? You're going to want to know those. So then August 1st, you're going to want to be in those areas where they're traveling and do kind of some light cow calling. They're not too used to, cows being up in that area. They're up their solitude. They're going to kind of be inquisitive. So it can be effective, but you're just going to have to pattern them and probably hit water sources. Bugling, I wouldn't do a ton because they're really not, they're just starting that August 1st to kind of start to get the rise in testosterone and start getting rid of, starting to think about getting rid of the velvet and getting hard horned. So, Scree camo is good. Mosquitoes can't even see you. I like that. So, okay, Mark, thank you. So, okay. So I was asked about this today. The hot on the trail scents, the ones that look like deodorant sticks, like I told you guys about. That is the attractant scent that I use. Mark has a few different flavors, I guess you could say, in the elk. But he has extended an offer to all of you guys. If you go to Hot on the Trail Scents, and he does have synthetic and regular. So make sure with your state, there's numerous states that you can only use synthetic. And on Mark's site, the white bottles are the synthetic. That's what you're going to want. But go over there and in the checkout, type in code ECA710 and you will get 25% off of your order. So right now is a good time to kind of start thinking about that stuff and starting to pick it up so that you have it and you're not having to do a mad rush. And in fact, I need to take that advice. And so website is www.hotscents.com. That's HOTT scents.com. And the code is ECA710 to get 25% off your order. Mark, does that code work for me too? Because I need to get all my stuff for the year. So let's see. Okay, so we got through all those questions. So now let me jump back over here. Tad, you're still cracking me up. I have a meeting at 11 a.m. Hope I get early call time tomorrow morning. Otherwise, yeah, I don't know what divisions they're jumping into, Danny. Are you going to be at the TAC in Big Sky? Matt, no, I'm not. Also, for those of you guys that live in eastern Idaho and western Wyoming, next weekend, the 19th and the 20th, Wayne Carlton and myself will be at Archery Unlimited in Etna, Wyoming. Friday the 19th, we're getting going about 6 o'clock, and then Saturday the 20th, we will go at 10 o'clock. But basically, it's just Wayne and I, we're going to stand up there and just kind of talk about strategies and things that we've learned in the past and just kind of have a conversation back and forth, and we're just going to share a bunch of knowledge with you guys. So it is definitely going to be a good seminar. I'm not sure how much more Wayne is going to be able to get out, so take advantage of this opportunity and get over there and take advantage of learning from a living legend. So apparently it takes beer and whiskey and wings and steak, but you will learn about that later. Okay. If you're a beginner caller and want to focus on perfecting just one cow sound, which would you recommend? Ooh, good question, Scott. Probably the lost mew or the excited mew, where you're focusing on that higher note. So just because that higher note tends to get more of a response, it has some emotion into it. So I would probably say that lost mew, it's also called a loud mew so that will work well for, a distance to locate or even, working a bull. So, Ethan Porter, best single reed bugle tube. I assume you're talking about an external reed bugle. There's a couple. I like the Power Bugle, and I also like the Selectable from Rocky Mountain Hunting Calls. So, Danny, you're killing me. So, Austin Rollins, what's a good calling strategy for when it's windy and the bulls are a little quieter? It's not necessarily that they're a little quieter. You got to understand that you have to be closer because the combination of the trees, the vegetation, and the wind, all of that is knocking that sound down or carrying it a different direction. So good calling strategy, try to get out of the wind if you can, because once you're out of the wind, your sounds are going to carry a little bit more, but also you're going to be able to hear things coming to you. So a lot of times when we're up on ridges, if it's really windy, we bail off the ridges. We get down onto the faces and out of the wind so that we can actually hear a little better. Nacho, any plan to do a video on Patreon for how to read a topo map? Yes, actually, I have talked with Derek over at Rugged Maps about getting one of his maps in, so that way we can talk about how to read a traditional topo map and use a compass for navigating. So I'm not sure that my question came through and I clicked out of here, but do you normally park and camp near a trailhead, or do you pick an area where you'd stop on a roadside and hunt from there? So actually, we have a camp spot that we drive to, and that's our base camp. From there, we'll jump in the truck and go, you know, to trailheads, or we'll go out night bugling. And night bugling, you know, it could be we locate elk and then we find a spot on the road where we can pull off the truck or pull the truck off and have enough room for people to get by. And that's the key thing. Make sure you leave enough room for people to get by easily. Don't make it tough. If you've got to go up the road another eighth of a mile before you can easily pull off, do it. It's the courtesy thing. It's the right thing to do. But then from that point, I mean, we don't necessarily always hit a trailhead. We may just bail off sometimes wherever and access. You know, we may find ways sometimes that if there is a trailhead that multiple people are hitting, you know, we may go down the road a little ways and just work right up the face to get into an area up over there. So, but no, it's not always a trailhead. So, hey, Michael, what's the best way to approach two herd bulls fighting and cows are all around? Have tried sneaking and sounding like another bull, but no luck. Any suggestions? Well, when they're actually locked in and fighting, because of all that noise, there's a lot of times that their eyes are closed to protect their eyes, but also the clanging of the horns is so loud that you can actually get away with movement, and then it turns into a spot and stalk. You know, you're going to basically really pay attention to what they're doing, still using vegetation and this and that to conceal and move, but then basically you're just going to stalk in. There's really not any point at calling at that point because, like I said, they're making so much noise when they truly are fighting. The only thing is when you're stalking in with all those cows around, you're really, really, really going to have to be aware. Now, the thing is if you're stalking in and a cow does bust you and they break and go, that's where now once the bulls that are fighting that separate, now you start doing a bull rendition of harassing a cow, and that herd bull that has the cows think that since he's preoccupied fighting that another bull has snuck in and tried to you know, sneak off one of his cows. So, but as long as they're locked up and fighting, no, it's just a spot and stalk scenario. So, okay. Do you find bulls bugle less when low bull to cow ratio? Seems that way to me. When I get into an area with a lot of bulls to cows, they seem to bugle more. Yes, you will get more bugling in an area that is higher bull to cow ratio because there is more of that competition for the cows. When you get into a low bull to cow ratio, so you may have a lone bull that has 8 cows and there's not another bull around for miles. He doesn't have to compete for that cow, so you are going to get less bugling. But that's where the breeding sequence comes in nice because you're coming in sucking right up next to that group. You're set up and now you're acting like another bull that's in that. So you just actually kind of raised that bull to cow ratio a little bit, and now it's you and that bull competing for your hot cow. So over the hill hunter, what put Washington State at the bottom of the list for non-resident destinations? Elk numbers, tag price, geography, or a combination of them? I think that there's a few combinations that really affect that. First off, you know, you have a lot of outfits that lock up the land that you have to pay basically access fees to get onto. And so really honestly, if somebody is taking a look at Washington versus Colorado, for example, the amount of public land and the access to the public land and also elk numbers, all of that really, really come into play. So I don't think it's truly just one thing that really drops it to the list. It's a combination of everything. But also, too, when you hear a lot of topics of people talking about traveling to, hunt, a lot of times it's Montana, Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona. A lot of discussion lately about Idaho too. But I think it's more because people associate those other states with travel to destinations, more so than kind of Washington and Oregon. So, but there are some really good opportunities on the eastern side of Washington, especially when you get over there in the Blue Mountain area, that they can actually get some good access to public land. So, any particular brand of wind checker? I use the dead down wind. I just like it. It seems to work well for me. It doesn't clump up too bad. And it's an orange bottle, so if I do happen to drop it, it's easy to see and easy to find. So, Tony, do you think bulls will still be rutting in mid-October? I have a rifle hunt starting mid-October to mid-November, wondering if I should bring my tube and diaphragm along. Yeah, there still will be some rutting activity in mid-October. How much activity? That's really hard to say because that's going to vary from year to year. Last year it was hot and heavy in October on into November. Years before that, it was just kind of towards the tail end. It was kind of that post-rut time where just a few cows were coming into estrus and it wasn't having a lot of activity. So definitely take your call, take your diaphragm, and match your surroundings. So if you're hearing a lot of bulls bugle, bugle. If you're not hearing much calling, don't call too much. So, okay. So we got a hunt in New Mexico, 2 tags. Should we split into 2 different groups or should we work as a team, pros and cons? Well, Robbie, it depends on how many people are in your group. 2 tags, are you talking just the 2 of you or is there support people coming? I mean, obviously if you have support people coming, a 2-on-1 scenario, meaning caller shooter versus the elk, has a higher percentage rate than a 1-on-1. 1-on-1 can still be highly successful, but you just got to make sure all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. So if it is the 2 of you, you can most certainly, that's something that you would have to work out between the 2 of you. And you could basically work it to where both of you pack the bows and then you trade off. And so you establish what your trade-off time is. If one of you, the one thing about, okay, you're going to be the shooter today and you're going to be the shooter tomorrow. The only thing with that is you have a lot of variables that can change. I mean, weather, barometric pressure, other hunters. So what we do a lot of times is we will change after each encounter. So, we encounter a bull, we set up, we're working the bull. For some reason, no shot happened. Okay, then we switch and, switch it up that way. So we change on each encounter. The nice thing is, too, is you tend to get a lot more opportunities and you switch a lot more doing it that way. So, speaking of elk travel ranges, did you see the news today about a collared cow elk that traveled 250 miles over an entire mountain range to give birth? I saw a little bit on it. I haven't read the whole article yet. So, but yeah, I'll definitely go check that out. So, I drew an archery rut trophy tag. Plan on holding out and chasing only big boys. Arizona 360 plus is very doable with continued hard, smart work. Aaron, that's great. A lot of times when you do draw those trophy areas, definitely, yeah, you put an age class and a size, and that's basically, your goal. That's what you're going for. But also, too, the thing to remember is if you're getting towards the tail end of that hunt, and if it takes you 20 years to draw that tag, and you may not have another 20 years. I would much rather shoot a smaller bull than take that tag off the mountain with me. So, especially a really hard to draw area that you probably will never draw again in your lifetime, I'm going to fill that tag. I'm not going to fill it with a smaller bull early on. I'm going to wait. I'm going to chase the big boys first, but I'm definitely going to fill that tag. Mike, hike midday or sit in the heavy dark and wait? So, well, the midday. So, elk do get pretty active during the midday, and what we do is we're typically within 250 yards, 300 yards of the bedding area. So that way, during that midday when those elk get up and start moving, we're right there so that we can get right on them and interact. So midday for us more is kind of staging outside those bedding areas, doing things, some soft cow calling, so that when they do get up, they crack off and let us know that they're on their feet, and then we can move in, set up, and engage and work that bull. But no, we're not constantly hiking around, especially if you're in a new area and hiking around during a midday. You're standing a very good chance of bumping into a bedding area and blowing those elk out of that bedding area, and then you may have ruined that spot for the rest of your hunt. So, any tips for calling in trophy class velvet mule deer bucks in August? Scott, there's not a lot. Rattling's not really effective in August. I'm not really sure if doe and fawn bleats would actually work very well. So I think you're going to be stuck with the old-fashioned sit on your butt behind glass and do 90% of your hunt behind the glass. Spot, get them to bed down, then plan your approach and take your approach route and take your time. So, we are going to be using hammocks for possible spike camps. If we're on elk in mid-September, should a guy have a bug net, or are they not too bad that time of year? I don't have a bug net on my hammock. Mid-September, you're probably going to be okay. They're probably going to get some cooler nights that the bugs really aren't going to be that bad. Maybe during the midday when the temperature is a little bit higher, but you are not really going to, really be in that hammock on your spike camp. So, now you shouldn't need a bug net, but if you have a hammock that has a bug net sewn in, it's not that much extra weight. So, Mr. Lawson, I live in Cincinnati and I'm going to put in for Idaho Elk Draw 2020. Do you know any good guides with good reputations? I know several of them. It just depends on what area you're drawing. So, the one thing you can do is, the area that you're drawing, you can actually go to the Outfitters Guides Association board for that state and do a review on outfitters in the area. And you can also, there is outfitter and guide reporting websites that will have basically reviews, and you can read them. Good reviews, bad reviews, mediocre reviews, and you can kind of do a lot of due diligence and gather your own information. And then if you want to take it a step further, go ahead and call Fish and Game and talk to a conservation officer and find out if they have any information on that guide, because they may have information that doesn't necessarily make it into the reviews, or maybe the person that wrote the review just had a bad day. So, can you remind me of the hammock you use? It is Winter Outfitters on Amazon. So, what is your number one e-scouting tool for finding feeding and bedding areas and prospective areas for the month of September using backdated satellite data? So, Dennis, you're killing me. So, so I'm not going to give you my number one. So those of you that are Patreon members, you guys know what my number one is. But CalTopo is a good resource. And honestly, once you have kind of an area selected on that, um, what's kind of cool is there are a couple of, and you can just type in, um, mapping. You can do Google searches. God, my mind's drawing a blank on the other one right now, but it actually does have different maps that you can choose. God dang it, you're killing me. Hold on. My mind is killing me right now. Sorry guys, got a lot of things on the mind, but it has a lot of different map layers that you can pull up, and some of those map layers are older maps that will have some of the road systems, because the thing is every time the Forest Service updates a map, there's road systems that they close that then fall off those maps, and so you want access to older maps sometimes. So yeah, it is the CalTopo. Okay, so but CalTopo is one that I use quite a bit. Acme Mapper is another good source to use. But the CalTopo up in the right hand side, you can switch, and it'll have the years. It'll say Forest Service map 2015 or Forest Service map or whatever, so you can switch to some of those olders. But the reason those are beneficial, and this is one reason why I really like Rugged Maps, is because Rugged Maps has basically those outdated road systems still on their maps. And the reason those are beneficial, because if you're looking at a newer map, and a lot of these e-scouting, Onyx maps, base maps, you'll see them all the time. We have the most up-to-date maps. We've updated our map. We have the most up-to-date map. The only problem is those old road systems fall off. Those old road systems are beneficial because they're still there. And they are great sources for moving around your hunting area quickly and quietly, but they are also great tools and sources for when you're packing an animal out, that you can use those old road systems to pack an animal out. You're not having to side hill, go over a bunch of deadfall, blowdowns, that kind of stuff. So, I'm just going to say CalTopo, Dennis, in response to your question there. So, do you just hunt Idaho, or do you hunt out-of-state hunts? Kevin, I've hunted Montana, I've hunted Colorado, Idaho, Oregon, have hunted, several different states. So have not had a chance to make it down to New Mexico or Arizona yet. So paper land is easily accessible in Washington, but the distance makes it hard for scouting. As Michael said, there's some good access points. Okay, so Robbie, if there's 4 of you, so 2 of you have tags, 2 of you don't. Break up into pairs of 2 and do the call or shooter scenario. That's going to raise your chances for success. So, God, guys, the countdown is starting. We're already at a minute and a half until Instagram shuts off. So let's just see if we've got anything else here. Okay, only about a month away. Hello, hello, hello. Okay, Mark just said that some orders are rolling in, so thank you guys. So those of you that are picking up some of that hot scents, I am doing a tutorial video on that. I will do 2 versions of it. One is going to be for the Patreon members. If you guys do want to do that, like I said, it's elkcallingacademy.com. It's $15 a month. I really dive in deeper on a lot of the information, and really I open up my playbook and show you exactly what I do out there and how I use these. But I will do a quick little tutorial video to show you guys how I do that. So, do they sell the entire line of Carlton calls at Cabela's or Sportsman's? Sportsman's has some of them. Cabela's, Mark actually just closed a deal with Bass Pro, so they will be on there. soon. So, all right, guys, we got 20 seconds. Thank you to each and every one of you for tuning in tonight. I appreciate it greatly. As always, keep calling, keep practicing. Most importantly, though, have fun. We will see you guys next week on the next episode of Wapiti Wednesday Q&A, brought to you by Elk Calling Academy. Have a great week, everybody.